Why do the quietest people in the room usually end up making the decisions? Why do some children grow into adults who move comfortably around power, while others spend their lives trying to impress it? And why are wealthy children often told to say less when everyone else is taught to stand out? That difference is not personality. It is not luck. It is not confidence. It is training. From a very young age, wealthy children are taught a rule that outsiders almost never notice. Adults reveal more when you don't try to impress them. That rule alone determines who gains leverage later in life and who stays stuck performing. The first invisible lesson: attention is a currency. Wealthy families teach their children something early that most households never articulate. Attention is a currency. And like all currencies, if you spend it carelessly, you become poor. Most children are encouraged to seek attention, speak up, be expressive, show confidence, demonstrate intelligence. Those behaviors are rewarded in school, praised by teachers, and celebrated socially. But wealthy families quietly teach the opposite. They teach their children that attention should be conserved, not spent. When you speak, you give information. When you perform, you expose positioning. When you try to impress, you reveal what you value. And once revealed, it can be used against you. Wealthy children are taught not to give that away for free. They are taught to watch first. Why impressing adults feels powerful. But isn't impressing adults feels like power? Adults smile. Adults praise. Adults approve. It feels like progress. But wealthy families understand something dangerous about this dynamic. Impressing adults places you beneath them. It frames the relationship as evaluator and performer. And performers do not control outcomes. Evaluators do. This is why wealthy children are taught never to chase approval from authority figures. Approval seeking creates dependency. Dependency creates predictability. Predictability destroys leverage. Instead, wealthy children are taught to become familiar with authority without fearing it. Familiarity removes intimidation. And intimidation is what causes people to talk too much. Observation as training, not passivity. When wealthy children sit quietly during adult conversations, they are not being excluded. They are being trained. They are learning. Who speaks first? Who interrupts? Who defers? Who everyone looks at before deciding? Who pretends to lead? Who actually leads? These details are invisible to someone trying to be impressive. If you are focused on how you sound, you are not noticing how others behave. Wealthy children are trained to notice behavior, not posture. Behavior reveals truth. Posture is theater. Why schools teach the opposite schools reward expression. Raise your hand. Participate. Speak confidently. Why? Because schools are designed to manage groups, not train power awareness. Expression is easy to measure. Observation is not. But wealthy families are not training children for classrooms. They are training them for negotiations, boardrooms, and informal power structures where outcomes are decided quietly. But that is why wealthy children often seem out of sync with traditional definitions of confidence. They are not trained for applause. They are trained for leverage. Silence as a strategic advantage. Silence makes people uncomfortable. When someone doesn't speak, others fill the gap. They explain. They justify. They reveal. Wealthy children are taught this early. Silence is not weakness. Silence is pressure. Pressure makes people show their cards. This is why wealthy children are allowed to remain silent longer than others. Silence buys time. Time buys clarity. Clarity buys control. Most people rush to speak because silence makes them anxious. Wealthy children are trained to tolerate that anxiety, and tolerance becomes power. Why wealthy children are allowed to be underestimated. Wealthy families would rather their children be underestimated early than overexposed too soon. Underestimation is protection. Overexposure creates expectations. Expectations create pressure. Pressure forces premature commitment. Premature commitment limits future options. Options are power. So wealthy families protect optionality at all costs. They delay performance. They delay expression. They delay confidence, because confidence shown too early stops learning. If you believe you are impressive, you stop observing. If you stop observing, you stop improving. The hidden cost of talking. Too much talking feels productive. It feels assertive. It feels confident. But every sentence you speak gives away data. Your values, your priorities, your assumptions, and your emotional state. Wealthy children are taught that information asymmetry is advantage. The less others know about you, the more freedom you retain. This is why wealthy adults rarely explain themselves fully. Explanation is a concession. Silence preserves leverage. How this training shapes adult behavior. This childhood conditioning carries seamlessly into adulthood. In meetings, wealthy adults speak last. In negotiations, they let others talk first. In conflicts, they wait. They listen for urgency. They listen for insecurity. They listen for pressure points. You only hear these things if you are not talking. Listening is not passive. It is active data collection. Talking feels powerful. Listening creates power. Impressing versus understanding. Impressing people puts you on a stage. And understanding people puts you behind the curtain. Stages are performative. Backrooms decide outcomes. Wealthy families train for backrooms. They train strategists, not performers. This is why wealthy children often rise quietly. People look up one day and wonder where they came from. They were always there. They were just watching. Why confidence is delayed on purpose. Wealthy families delay confidence intentionally. Not because confidence is bad, but because confidence without context creates blind spots. Confidence too early creates arrogance. Arrogance blocks learning. Learning is leverage. So, wealthy children are taught humility through observation, not insecurity. Humility that comes from understanding complexity. This creates internal certainty, not external performance, and authority without intimidation. Wealthy children are taught to see authority as human, not mystical. They see adults make mistakes, contradict themselves, act emotionally, because they are observing, not idolizing. This removes fear. Fear causes people to overperform. Overperformance reveals weakness. Calm observation reveals strength. Why this feels unfair, and why it works. This training feels unfair because it is invisible. It is not money. It is not connections. It is not privilege in the obvious sense. It is neurological conditioning. And conditioning shapes outcomes long before opportunity appears. But here's the critical truth. This skill is learnable. It is not genetic. It is behavioral. Rebuilding this skill as an adult. If you were raised to impress adults, you may struggle with over-explaining, seeking approval, talking under pressure, feeling intimidated by authority, mistaking visibility for influence. This is not a flaw. It is training, and training can be reversed. You rebuild this skill by doing the opposite of what feels natural. Speak last. Listen longer. Delay opinions. Observe patterns. Resist the urge to perform. At first, it feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is the habit breaking. The final truth. Wealthy families teach children to observe adults, not impress them, because impressing is expensive. It costs you information, it costs you leverage, it costs you control. Observation compounds quietly, and once you understand this rule, you cannot unsee it. You will notice who talks too much, who performs confidence, who seeks validation. And you will understand why the quiet ones usually shape the outcome. They were not trying to be impressive. They were trying to understand. And understanding always wins.